You've been there, right? You're in the middle of a great story, you're talking to a friend, and then you see their eyes just kind of glaze over and drift down to their phone. Yep, we've all been there. That's the exact moment you get FUB.
But what if you could take that little everyday annoyance and turn it into a super interesting social study? Well, that's pretty much the challenge for Assignment 2 in HLSC3Q20. So we're going to break down exactly how you can become a field researcher for a day and turn those moments of fubbing into actual real data. Think of this as your guide to the mission. And hey, remember, if you need any backup, your instructor and TA are always there to help you out.
Okay, first things first, let's get on the same page. Fubbing, as you can see, is the act of snubbing someone by looking at your phone. It's that moment when a digital screen totally wins the battle for attention over a real, live person sitting right in front of you. We all know it when we see it, but how do you go from just, noticing it to actually studying it? For that, we turn to our official mission briefing, the assignment instructions themselves.
Let's walk through the exact steps you need to take. We're talking about conducting a direct observation of fubbing right in its natural habitat, a university campus.
Every good mission has rules of engagement, and this one has 3 really simple ones. First, find a public spot, like a cafeteria or a study lounge. Second, pick a group with 3 or more people who are obviously socializing. And third, and this is the key, this is the trigger, your 10-minute timer starts the instant one person in that group looks at their device. And boom, you are officially collecting data.
Okay, so the clock is ticking. You're not just people watching anymore, right? You are a researcher in the field. So what exactly are you looking for? Let's break down the key things you need to be observing.
Your observation is really twofold. You're not just watching the fubber, you're also watching the people being fubbed. Let's just call them the fubbies. For the fubber, you're noting 2 things. How long are they actually on their phone, and what's their degree of disengagement from the group? At the same time, watch the fubbies. How do they react? Do they try to get them back in the conversation? Do they just ignore them? Or, and this happens a lot, does everyone just give up and pull out their own phones? Keep an eye on all of it for the full 10 minutes and really keep that researcher focus.
Now we get to a really cool part of this assignment. You, the researcher, actually get to define what disengagement means. You're going to create your own scale to measure it.
So what does disengaged actually look like? This is where you make the call. Is it just a quick glance at a notification? Does that count? Or does someone need to be staring at their screen for a solid 10 seconds? You, as the researcher, get to set the definition you'll use for your study.
And you also get to define the degree of disengagement. Is turning your body slightly away from the group low disengagement? What about putting in one earbud? Maybe that's moderate. And what about physically getting up and walking away? I mean, that sounds pretty high, right? You create the scale, minimal, moderate, all out. It's up to you.
See, this kind of detail shows you that observational research isn't just about counting stuff. It's about consistently interpreting the behaviors that you see. And like any good researcher, you're going to create a data collection form and keep track of everything you observe right on it.
Okay, so you've done your fieldwork. Your notebook is full of raw data. Mission accomplished? Not quite. Now it's time to turn those notes into a compelling story, your scientific report.
Every scientific report follows a really clear structure, kind of like a story arc for your research. It kicks off with the purpose, what you studied and why. Then comes the method, how and where you did it. After that, you present the raw results. We're talking just the facts. The discussion is where you get to interpret those facts. And finally, the conclusion shares the big takeaway. It's the standard way to tell the story of your data.
All right, let's talk about the results section. This is where your messy field notes get transformed into cold, hard facts. And an APA-formatted table is the absolute perfect tool to present your findings clearly and professionally.
In fact, your mission, your assignment, requires you to report the who, where, and when of your observations in an APA-formatted table. And by the way, I hear the course instructor and TA are both sticklers when it comes to APA formatting. So you know that advice to look up the APA website and follow the guidance there exactly? Yeah, I'd probably take it.
So to make your report look super professional, here are a few pro tips for those APA tables. First, the results section is a no-opinion zone. Just the facts, ma'am. You'll save your interpretations for the discussion. Second, always introduce your table with a sentence or two in the text before it appears. And third, get that formatting perfect. It's this kind of precision that separates casual observation from credible research. All right, we've presented the data in the results section. Now for the really important parts, the discussion and the conclusion.
This is where we finally get to answer that big question, so what?
This is where you connect your specific observations to the bigger picture. In your discussion section, you'll start with a broad statement about your main finding, and then you'll dive into all the interesting patterns and subtleties you uncovered.
So start looking for patterns. Was phubbing more common during a casual lunch versus, say, a group project meeting? Did the location seem to matter? This is where you really start connecting the dots. How did the group dynamics actually shift? Did the energy in the conversation just totally die? It's through these observations that the real human cost of phubbing starts to become visible.
You know, the best researchers out there are also their own biggest critics. This assignment actually requires you to identify weaknesses in your own method. For example, that definition of disengagement you created, that's a potential weakness because, let's face it, it's subjective. But acknowledging these limits doesn't weaken your study. It actually makes it way more credible, especially when you also mention the study's strengths.
And finally, in your conclusion, you zoom all the way out to the big picture. What do these small 10-minute moments tell us about the overall health of our social connections? You know, the very things that are supposed to help us be resilient. And could something like a campus-wide phub-free pledge actually improve well-being? These are the final, powerful questions your report gets to tackle.
It really leaves us with a huge question. What is the real, long-term cost of these constant little interruptions? Are they slowly chipping away at the very connections that are supposed to make us resilient? That's a question that goes way beyond just this assignment, and it's something we can all think about the next time we reach for our phones. In the meantime, enjoy the mission. Follow the instructions carefully, and seriously, don't hesitate to reach out to your prof or TA for support.